Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating analysis that completely flips the script on Donald Trump's foreign policy. Instead of viewing his actions as random or disparate, the source material we're digging into today suggests they're actually part of a highly deliberate, cohesive master plan. We're drawing entirely from a recent analysis that aims to reframe how we look at the last several years of geopolitical maneuvering on the world stage.
So right off the bat, here's the core question we're looking at. Is his geopolitical approach just erratic, or is it actually a highly calculated, multi-layered strategy? For years, critics have called these foreign policy decisions isolated, reactive, or even totally random. But this new analysis argues the exact opposite.
The source vehemently argues that there's a strategic genius at play, quoting commentator Beck, who suggests the intent here is to completely reset the global world order. It's like we're too close to the canvas right now to see the full painting, and this perspective claims the true scope of this geopolitical realignment won't even be fully digested for another 5 to 10 years.
To wrap our heads around this complex theory, we're going to break down the source's argument into 5 distinct pillars: the hidden strategy theory, securing global choke points, economics and energy dominance, redefining America first, and finally, the Iran deterrence strategy.
All right, starting with pillar number 1, the hidden strategy theory, bumbling or brilliant. The source makes the case that while critics see these policies as a disjointed Rorschach test, they're actually missing the consistency of a New York real estate developer. Think about it. You don't survive and thrive in the cutthroat world of New York real estate without a serious underlying strategy. The argument here is that if you ignore the rhetoric and strictly follow the actions, a deeply interconnected theory of global governance starts to emerge.
Moving on to Pillar 2, securing global choke points. This is all about geopolitics on a global chessboard.
This brings us to how specific geographical moves are framed by the source. They aren't seen as isolated incidents, but as a systematic securing of the global board. According to the analysis, moves regarding the Panama Canal, Greenland, Malaysia, and Venezuela were highly deliberate chess moves meant to corner adversaries like China and secure crucial sea lands. Take the Panama Canal, for instance. The goal wasn't just diplomatic, it was about evicting Chinese military influence from the Western Hemisphere. And that highly criticized interest in buying Greenland, the argument is it was actually about locking down rare earth minerals, controlling melting Arctic sea lanes, and setting up vital missile defenses. From securing Asian oil routes to asserting dominance in Venezuela without the burden of nation-building, the perspective here sees a totally unified playbook.
The analysis even claims this was predicted well in advance. There's an anecdote in the source where, backstage at an event a full year before he took office, Panama was specifically flagged as a critical future focus. It really suggests this kind of territorial control was meticulously planned long before the administration even began.
Which brings us to Pillar 3, economics and energy dominance. Basically, rebuilding the engine.
Because controlling geography is only half the battle, right? The source highlights a massive estimated investment. We're talking upwards of $10 trillion aimed at building new factories at home. The goal here is reversing the West's dangerous reliance on adversarial nations. The argument is pretty straightforward. A country that only consumes and no longer manufactures is fundamentally weak and at the mercy of its enemies.
So, here's the crucial point. By pulling back unconditional defense funding for Europe and ramping up domestic oil and manufacturing, this perspective suggests the strategy is to force global allies to rely on American shores instead of the Middle East. By demanding NATO allies step up and pay 5% of their GDP for military rebuilding or risk losing U.S. support, the whole dynamic shifts. Combine that with dominating rare earth mineral extraction and becoming the #1 global energy supplier, and suddenly you've got European ships that used to head to the Middle East for oil, turning around and heading toward the United States instead.
Okay, Pillar 4, redefining America first, isolation versus deterrence.
This aggressive posturing requires us to look at what this doctrine actually means in practice. While some folks view America first as strict isolationism, just focusing purely on domestic issues, the source explains that the true doctrine is about making the entire world reliant on America. That, they argue, is the ultimate America first policy. It's not about hiding away at home. It's about positioning America as the indispensable linchpin of global security and economics, preventing threats long before they ever cross an ocean.
And the text brutally redefines the Pentagon's purpose under this master plan. It's very explicit. The goal isn't to start endless wars or engage in decade-long nation-building. The goal is to train a military to project such sudden, terrifying, and overwhelming force when provoked that the rest of the world's adversaries just instinctively stand down.
The source calls this the strings-attached theory. The idea is that global reliance on U.S. energy and military creates ultimate leverage. It's kind of like a parent paying for a kid's college education, right? If America is funding the protection and the energy, America gets to dictate the terms of global peace. Allied nations aren't fully independent if they rely entirely on the U.S. for defense and power. This strings-attached leverage is, according to the source, the real core engine of the New World Order.
Finally, let's look at Pillar 5, the Iran deterrence strategy, the ultimate proof of concept.
To see this deterrence doctrine in action, the source uses Iran as the ultimate case study. They argue that dealing with Iran requires understanding a very specific historical timeline of aggression. Starting back in 1979, the anti-American Great Satan ideology became the regime's foundational principle. Fast forward to the 2000s, and you have them definitively funding militias responsible for American casualties in Iraq. Now, in the 2020s, with advanced missile programs and nuclear defiance, the theory argues that this isn't a regime you can just wait on. Traditional diplomatic patience effectively rewards the behavior.
So the analysis argues the strategy here was uniquely calculated. It involves securing the Strait of Hormuz oil choke point and striking decisively to assert dominance, but crucially, making a conscious choice to avoid collapsing the regime. The doctrine applied here is to teach a harsh lesson while avoiding that if you break it, you buy it trap of forever wars. By projecting absolute clarity and resolve, the administration aimed to deter further action without triggering a massive power vacuum that extremist groups could exploit.
The source really distills this entire geopolitical strategy down to one fundamental question of global psychology and power dynamics. Is a world where tyrants fear America safer than a world where America fears tyrants? The argument firmly asserts that weakness inherently invites aggression, and when America retreats, bad actors eagerly step in.
Ultimately, the theory concludes that this highly controversial, heavy-handed leadership style is literally the only thing keeping the world from burning. The perspective provided by the source is that true peace isn't achieved through endless negotiations with adversaries, but through an overwhelming projection of strength.
As we wrap up this explainer on the source's theory, we have to ask ourselves, can this overarching framework of global choke points and brutal deterrence sustainably maintain long-term peace? Or does aggressive deterrence risk lighting the very fire it aims to put out? It's a fascinating, interconnected lens for viewing these foreign policy decisions, reframing them from isolated acts into a grand, unified strategy. Whether you see it as brilliant statesmanship or a highly volatile gamble on the world stage, understanding this specific theoretical framework is absolutely crucial for decoding the modern geopolitical chessboard. Thanks for joining us for this breakdown. Keep questioning, keep analyzing, and we'll see you next time.